Well, hello friends, welcome back to another video. I've never done one quite like this before, but if you saw my previous video where I broke down how I read so much and how I managed to read 100 books last year, you might find this one interesting. This is my top books from last year. I know it's way out of date, a couple months out from last year, but that's okay, better late than never. So I don't really have much of a script. Normally I script these things out, but this one I'm actually just taking my notes off my website, because I have a few bullet points there, reaganschrock.com if you're interested about the books I read and so forth. So hopefully you found this valuable. These are my top books from the last year, 2021, and it's really hard to narrow it down to, I don't know, what we got, like 10 or 12 here. Yeah, it was a really good year for books. So without further ado, these are in no particular order. The very first one is Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. If you're into productivity, time management, definitely read this one. It's not your typical book on productivity. Most productivity books are like, how to make every second count and wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do all these things and go without. Anyway, it's not that type of book. It's much more like, why does productivity or being productive even matter in your life? Why do you want to be productive? What's the end goal? And how can we use this to make our lives meaningful and really through it all enjoy the process so much more? And it's not the typical book of how to get more, I guess it is how to get more done, but it goes a lot deeper than that. I found it really helpful. I actually wrote a whole newsletter on this book. Recommend, it's a fairly short read and very understandable and very practical as well. Okay, what do we got here? Oh yes, this one. So I had never encountered Jordan Peterson before, but I read his book, 12 Rules for Life, which I found really interesting. Wow, I can see why he's so popular. He has a way of breaking things down, like complicated things, and you're still able to understand them pretty well. Obviously, I disagree with him on a bunch of things. I disagree with pretty much every book I read, but this one was really good. It was a helpful reference point, but I found this really helpful to untangle some things in my own mind, particularly just how other people's worldviews work and how people can get to different places in life and what the mindsets are that can lead people certain ways. Really interesting. Yeah, I think I could say I recommend that. I found that one very interesting. The next one on the list is Living Forward by Michael Hyatt. My wife and I read this actually while we were on sabbatical this last year, and it's just a lot of thinking through what are your life goals? How do we think about our life as a package, and what are the things that matter to us, and gives you all kinds of practical tips. And I don't even know where to start. This book's incredible. Just go on Amazon right now and buy it. You will be so glad you did. It's a pretty small book, but there's so much in here of processing through your life as a whole and how to make it matter for the things that are the most important in life. So yeah, read it. It's so good. I actually wrote a bit of an article on some of this stuff too. That's up on my website because it was just that good. Let's see. Here's another one. This one's really practical. Atomic Habits, which has almost become a bit of a classic already, even though it's only been out for a few years. I literally read it twice last year. It's just so good. So many little practical tips and things to understand how our minds work and how we get to the place where we do the things that matter to us, because it's almost like setting ourselves up for success. If you can build good habits in your life, you can go so much further, and versus just kind of letting your life listlessly go where it will, and especially negative habits, oh my, it'd really pull you down. So yeah, maybe I should just do a whole video on this book, breaking down how to build the proper habits in your life. Wow, yeah, it's so good. Let's see the next one. Okay, and here's another one. Extreme Ownership. It's a book on leadership. I teach some classes in some of our trainings for our nonprofit that I use some of the material out of this for, so I read it again for that. And just was like, wow, this is just really good. It's nothing, I wouldn't say like rocket science either. Just very practical, down-to-earth examples of here's how to lead in really difficult situations, or lead teams through things that can be really challenging, and what all that looks like. As you can see, I got all kinds of notes and tags in this thing from this. I think it's like my second or third time through. Yeah, really good stuff on leadership. If you're involved in anything to do with like teamwork and leadership, you should probably pick up a copy of that one. Let's see, Deep Work, next one by Cal Newport. again, this one's already basically become a classic on how if we want to get the things that matter to us in life finished and done, you have to set aside large blocks of time where you're not distracted and you can just focus on that one thing. In the tech age, I guess you could say, there's so many distractions all around us all the time, and it can be very hard to just sit down on one thing and just work on it and stay focused on that thing. And it's amazing how much further you can go in life, really, in general, if you use the concepts in this book. I found it very helpful. It's very practical. Actually, there's whole portions of it that are so kind of in the weeds and practical, you could probably just skip. But overall, it's well worth your time, and hopefully will make you more effective with getting the things done in life that matter to you. Let's see. Okay, Keep Going by Austin Kleon. He makes these short little books on the artistic life, basically, you could say. And this one, I've read his others, but this one particularly was really good. So it's like 10 ways to stay creative in good times and bad. So if you work in anything creative, you know, like I do, making videos or traveling or photography, whatever, you get those times where you're just kind of in a slump. And how do I keep going? How do I make my work meaningful and interesting? And this thing's just full of neat little ideas and practical things on how to keep yourself motivated and keep going with the things that you want to do with your life. So if you're creative at all, highly recommend this. You can literally read it in one sitting. It's super short with lots of illustrations, but just really kind of a breath of fresh air, actually, honestly. So yeah, highly recommend that. The next one I don't have on my stack. Hold on. Okay, let's see. Where are you? Next one on the list, Simply Christian by N.T. Wright. So I hadn't read a lot of things by him, Anglican fellow over in England, and just his way of unpacking what it means to be a Christian and how that works and the core pieces of Christianity. Wow, I found this one really interesting. His angle is a little different than from what I'm used to, and I'm sure I would disagree with him on a number of things, but I found it very helpful and really interesting. Very approachable book, pretty small, well worth the time. So yeah, if that's the kind of thing you're interested in, really recommend you start with this. I hadn't really read a lot of his stuff before this, and it was a really good introduction, I guess you could say, to his work. He's very popular apparently, and I just somehow, until last year, hadn't read his stuff. So yes, recommend that one. Okay, so the last one on the list is the Gulag Archipelago. This is the authorized abridged edition. I couldn't bring myself to read the full one, which is like 3 volumes and just utterly massive. I had never read this. It is a classic from the 1950s, and wow, everybody should read this book. Yeah, this one is very sobering, very, very sad, and is a whole portion of humanity's history and really ideological bent that I did not know existed. I don't know where this book was my whole life. Someone recommended it to me. I bought it off Amazon and devoured it. This is, wow. Yeah, it's really deep and really, really sad, really evil. Maybe I should just read a portion of what I have on my website. Basically, this book should be required reading, is what I wrote. It will deeply impact your view on human nature, what humans are capable of doing, and even how we view history and humanity as a whole. I guess I kind of was a bit aware, but I just never really understood what Stalin did to the people of Russia and really the whole entire Soviet Union. And that's what this is about, the Gulag system throughout Siberia and other remote parts of the communist empire at the time. And I didn't really understand what that was like and why it was done and the ideology behind it. And this book really unpacks what that was like through a survivor who lived through those horrible camps and the terrible conditions. I mean, like, I don't even have, my brain can't even wrap around the numbers. Estimates of, 20 million, say, that may have died through this whole thing or somewhere around there. I mean, that's just crazy to think about. That happened, within living memory. There's still people that would remember that. And I was unaware of those things. And that is unfortunate. I should not allow myself to be ignorant of something that monumental to world history. And I just didn't even know it happened. Wow. Yeah, so I don't even know where to start with this one. It's bleak. It's very tragic. It's almost like what happens when humanity just goes off the rails and life becomes a nightmare for the people who had to live through this, who had to live through the Gulag era. So pick it up, read it. It's a chunk. It's, what do we have, 500 pages of fairly fine print, but totally worth it. Everybody should read it. So there you have it. Those are the main books from last year, 2021, that I found helpful for my life, that I particularly enjoyed or learned a lot from. You can always find more book information and recommendations over on my website. I'm slowly trying to build up this thing where I publish some of my book notes, because I take a lot of notes on the things that I'm learning and put those out there for you. So we'll see how soon that actually happens. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it interesting. If you enjoyed this video, check out this other video that I made on how I'm able to read so much each year. Yeah, all right, now I gotta go put all these away on my shelf. Yeah, thanks again for watching. Oh, also, I have a books podcast with my friend Jaren. That is linked down below. You should check it out. Okay. Okay. Oh, and also I have a podcast with my brother where we talk about the things we're learning from the books we read as well. So you might find that interesting. Also linked down in the description.